I'm not exactly sure where this footage is going to fit in, but what I'm going to do right now is jack up the Bravada on all four corners, put jack stands under it. Once I get all the wheels off the ground and it's stable, I am going to see if this three-way switch I hooked up to the transfer case is going to work for us. So I'm looking forward to that. It seems like it keeps blowing fuses, and I haven't jacked it up to really get to test it. I've just been goosing it in low traction scenarios. We have a roaring sound, and to me it kind of sounds like a axle bearing in the rear end. So I'm going to check that while I've got it jacked up. It might get dark on us, but I'm dedicated. I'm going to get it done, or at least find something out. I mentioned that we've had a roar that kind of sounded like a rear axle bearing to me. So when I jacked this wheel up right here, I thought, well, I'll check for the play on it, and I found some. So let me show you that. That's way too much. I'll jack the other side up and then we'll compare to it. I can't get none out of it. Very little. But yeah, I've got a bad passenger side outer axle bearing on the rear end. I might as well check the front too while I'm over here checking all the wheels. So let's just do that real quick. Very tight. On to the next and last. All right, that one's free. Zero motion. What I'm doing there is checking the vertical tilt on all four wheels, lifting up and down. That's telling me the vertical play, especially on the front. It's hard to, I couldn't go the other way and get an accurate reading because it's got steering on the front. See how loose that is? That doesn't tell me anything because it's just moving my steering parts in there. So you have to go vertical on a steering axle to find out if there's any true play. Now for the grand finale, I'm going to test out the all-wheel drive. What are you doing?
Rearranging the cabinets.
Well, that sounds like you got a lot of extra time on your hands. Why don't you come out here and visit me at Bravada?
Wow.
Because I just got to show you something. Love you, bye. Alright, while she is on her way from rearranging cabinets, I'm going to check the fuse in here to make sure what I have wired in is going to work. And if it is, I will show you all about it. I've got the back off the ground. The front is not turning. It is free. The back is turning. Now I'm going to attempt to activate the all-wheel drive. That's the G80 kicking in. When it senses one side's going faster than the other, it kicks it in. Weird, because I am in neutral. How's it doing that? It's weird. Quick update before the camera dies. I'm tackling that rear axle bearing today. I just got back from the parts store. Got a axle seal, axle bearing and seal driver, and I got a slide hammer to pull the old bearing out. And I got to get started ASAP because the dude needs this back today. The update is I have removed the wheel. I've removed the brake caliper. There it is hanging down there. I have drained and removed the rear diff cover. This one has a sway bar in the way. This came factory on the Bravada. This bolt right there is locking this pin in, and I need to remove this pin to allow the axle to slide towards the differential, maybe a ½ inch or so, and then the C-clip will fall out of it, and I will slide the axle back that way and pull it out of the vehicle. That will give me access to my rear axle bearing and seal. Well, I have removed the locking pin. Now I need to knock this axle hub in, let the C-clip fall out. If it doesn't fall out, pull it out, and then I have to pull the axle out. There it goes. It finally fell out. Took several jiggles, but here comes the axle. There it is. The axle is ruined. I was afraid of that. That should be perfectly smooth right there, and I have a groove cut into mine. I could replace this bearing, but that's not going to fix my axle. It was definitely well lubricated. It's sitting in oil right now. Wow, that sucks. And that is how we remove an axle bearing. We got it all tore down now. I feel like the axle's worse than the bearing, honest. Well, it turns out the axle is in pretty rough condition right there. Might be hard to see on video, but it's cut pretty deep. I called all the local parts stores, O'Reilly's, Advanced, AutoZone. None of them have this axle in stock. We do have one in the red truck, and to get the Bravada back on the road, I guess I'm gonna sacrifice the one in the red truck and put it in here if it is the same and in better condition. Alright, we have pulled the axle out of the red truck. This is a 4-wheel drive 2nd gen. So my theory is that it's going to have the same axle shaft, and since this truck is down and we need the Bravada, I figured it would be worth checking. Now, if you noticed on the Bravada a while ago, where the bearing rode on there, it had cut itself a real nasty groove in there. This one, you can't even feel a groove with your fingernail. So I'm going to call it good. The next question is it the same axle as the Bravada? And we'll find that out now. It seems that the red truck axle shaft is the exact same axle shaft that is in the Oldsmobile Bravada. And that's great because the red truck's down and nobody in town's got one, so at least we can get it put back together tonight. That is not glitter that I just put in the rear end. That's Elizabeth raising hell 24/7, burning up them roads. In the center of that right there that you see, that's actually the butt end of the other axle. You're seeing through the diff in the center. All this fluid really needs to be flushed out of there. I did drain it, but we should probably drain it again soon after we run it.
Yeah, because it's gonna get all that in there.
Here is my national bearings. Bearing number 5707. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the same bearing for all 7.5 inch 10 bolt GM. Could be wrong. Notice there's a groove on there. Seems like it almost tapers down on one end. I'm going to use the narrower end to go towards the center. Alright, I have cleaned out where this bearing is going to ride on there. I bought this bearing race and seal driver today. I seen it on a YouTube video one time, and today was a perfect chance to get my hands on it. When you're matching up the driver you want to use a smaller diameter than what you're installing, but at the same time you can't use such a small diameter that it hits your bearings instead of your outer race of the bearing. So I think I found the one that I'm going to use. What I'm using here, heavy duty high performance Lucas 85 140 gear oil. The reason I'm using this is it says it's excellent for use in limited slip differentials. The Bravada has a limited slip differential, and your S10 or 7.5 10 bolt might have one as well. So that's what I'm going to use to prime this bearing with. Get some lubrication on it right off the bat so that it's not lacking anything the first time it hits the road and sees high speeds on this bearing. The bearing is now installed. I'm going to take this National Oil Seals 710166 seal, drop this puppy in there.
Puppy.
Silicone this so that it gets an extra good seal for any imperfections that might be in here or on the seal itself. So I'm going to dry what I can. It doesn't need a whole lot because this is such a tight fit on there that it's probably going to push most of this off anyways. But what I'm going to try and do is just add a skim all the way around it. And that's just to take up any imperfections during the seal install so you don't have any leaks in the future. You could probably get away without doing it. The same thing that we drove the bearing in with is the same thing that we will use to drive the seal in with.
Seal in. Has the Ella running down there? Huh?
Yep. I'm so glad I got these new seal and bearing installers, because what I had to use before was an exact size socket, and sometimes you don't have the exact size socket. The next step would be slide the new red truck axle, the used red truck axle, into the rear end. I gotta return this slide hammer before they close in 30 minutes, so I will be right back to finish up this job. Just got back from the parts store, returned that slide puller. Just got a rear diff cover gasket. Usually I just use silicone, but there's been several times I've had some leaks, so this time I'm using an actual brand new gasket and silicone. I've got it most of the way cleaned up. Got the silicone on there, gasket laying over top of it. There it is. All the way in there. Now I gotta get underneath of there and lock the axle in. Pull the axle out just the tiniest bit. Okay, perfect. Don't move it. Alright, push the axle in. Just bump it with your fist. A little dud 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 dud. Yep. Now pull it out. Pull out. Okay, I think you got it.
Is that where it's supposed to sit?
Yeah, I gotta get this locking rod in there now. The C-clip is back in the diff. Damn, it's got pinion still leaking too. What's the weather? Is it supposed to rain tonight?
I don't think so.
Well, it's the next morning, and I haven't exactly felt of the play in the wheel here on the axle. No play. That's great. I still need to add diff fluid to it. Like I said before, use stuff made for posi track if you have a posi track in there. Limited slip, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully I'm test driving this puppy today.
Puppy.